It is the year of Wellbeing here at BBC Radio Solent, where we are sharing with you different ways to look after your mental and physical health. And we're going to find out more about autism this afternoon and the support that is available for you if you are autistic. Dave Seppel-Stevens is a senior autistic practice and training specialist at Autism Hampshire. And I have Chris with us as well, Chris Stiles, who is 55 years old and was diagnosed 2 years ago and is from Blandford Forum. Hello, both. Welcome to BBC Radio Solent.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Dave, can you start? Can you expand a bit more on autism and how it might affect someone and what you do in your role?
Okay, from the get-go, I rarely use the word autism in isolation because autism is not a kind of entity. It's not a separate thing, at least in the way that I and increasingly autistic people view it, because I'm autistic myself. Mm-hmm. It is, an integral part of my personality. It influences pretty much everything I do, and so, using that narrative, I would always apply it to autistic people. I would say there's no such thing as autism, but there is definitely such a thing as autistic people.
Okay.
And basically, I think Chris was sort of explaining before we came on air that it's just a kind of different way of perceiving the world. The way our brains are connected up is different from most people. Given the right set of circumstances, we can flourish. Mm-hmm. Given the wrong set of circumstances, we struggle. So it's not just, you can't just define it as a disability as such. It depends what circumstances you're in, your life experience and all the rest of it. Because a lot of the characteristics that people ascribe to being autistic are in fact more a product of what life has thrown at you, particularly if you've not been, these are key words, accommodated or adjusted for.
Okay. Did you want to add to that, Chris?
Well, I just think Dave has described it so eloquently. And the thing about being autistic is you most definitely do experience the world through a completely different set of lenses. And you make sense of your environment through a different set of lenses. And I think probably the greatest thing is to know thyself. Now, the thing about being diagnosed late, in my case, at the age of 52, when I arrived here in the UK, it was suddenly the lights went on. I understood why I am so different. I understood why I solve problems in a different way. I understood why I can become myopically focused on something and absolutely break it apart and do in-depth research into it. That's what feeds me. Now, the astonishing thing is, having come out of a C-suite banking environment in South Africa, where extensive testing was done all the time around leadership development programs, this was never picked up. It was never picked up that I am, if you will, autistic. And yet it was always said, oh, he's the odd one out. He's the different one. And it often led to quite a lot of conflict at that level because everybody would be seeing, if you will, the solution to be A, and I would be seeing it to be Z. And it sometimes led to quite an antagonistic work environment, and they had no idea that I was autistic. So it's almost like, why are you just choosing to be difficult?
Mm-hmm. So finding out that you're an autistic person later on in life, then the lights came on and it kind of explained you. Why did it take so long for you to find out?
Well, firstly, you don't think that you're autistic. My parents never treated me like I was autistic. The environment that I was schooled in, going to university, even the work environment, there was no focus on autism or the fact, it's just that you're different. Mm-hmm. In actual fact, when I was selected into a very elite leadership development program, the word that was used was metaphoric. Mm-hmm. They said, oh, he's a metaphoric thinker. That's what makes him so different. Right. So you actually really feel like you've fallen from outer space, because the interesting thing is, Lucy, you know that you are different. Mm-hmm. I knew it from when I was tiny, but you can't put your finger on it. Now that I know this, literally everything has transformed, and I'm in such a much better place with who I am and the work that I'm now doing as a human futurist.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. And how does it affect your everyday life? I mean, you talked about sort of being sidelined at work, although you flourished in terms of your career. I believe you flourished. Maths is absolutely your passion. Did it? I mean, how does it affect an autistic person?
I think more than anything, I'm intensely curious.
Okay.
And that is what used to drive my bosses wild in the corporate environment, is I would challenge everything. Why? It's an incredibly powerful question to ask. Why? Because it just opens up a whole new line of thinking. And in that world, they literally just wanted to get something done. So to answer your question, the challenges that came in that environment was because I didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't fit in, I was able, on the back of my abilities and my intellect, to go so far, but I could actually go no further. And this is why I stepped out of the corporate world, because I realized that's it, I've hit a ceiling. And I decided to rather pursue my passion, which is around human development, not only just understanding more about myself, but also trying to understand so much more about people and how people are put together, why things happen the way they do. And this is on the back of me being a trained scientist.
But you say you didn't fit in. Do you, knowing now that you're an autistic person, can you fit in now? Can you work around?
It all depends if the environment is going to accommodate that.
And what is an accommodating environment?
Oh, not in the slightest.
No, what is though?
Oh, well, an accommodating environment is one where they will actually entertain what you are bringing to the table and not actually just dismiss it. This is actually what happens, is because you think so differently, because you solve problems so differently, and I can see Dave nodding here, is you challenge everything about what is neurotypical. And that creates a lot of discomfort. And sometimes that discomfort is too much, and they'd rather just try and sideline you than actually engage and try and say, hold on a moment. Why is it? Why do you do what I do? Lucy, I walked in here. In the front of your reception area are 2 couches. I'm obsessed with triangles. Why? Because triangulation allows me to be creative on a mathematical level. Those two benches where people can seat have got 32 different triangles. Wherever I go, I see things, I count things, I analyze things. A neurotypical would never sit down and realize that there are 32 triangles right there in front of them in the seating area. So this is why I say I know I'm different, but the tragedy is they don't really take it that seriously. They pay it a lot of lip service, but they don't take it that seriously.
Thanks, Chris. This is amazing. Dave, what support is there? I mean, Chris has just shared really passionately his experience, his journey. What support is there from Autism Hampshire?
Well, speaking as a trainer and consultant, we offer what we call neurodiversity or neuroaffirming training for parents, teachers, pretty much anybody else who's interested. I mean, we have some sort of free training for teachers and parents. They're sort of often in the front line in the respect that they're coming across autistic people and, sometimes don't know, the best way. Strong to use the word support, sort of nurture, people to be the best autistic people that they can be rather than try and mould them into something that society dictates is normal, which always ends up in disaster. We call it camouflaging. We have, on top of that, there are serendipity groups around the county which cater for autistic adults who want to meet other autistic people. And it's important to say there that just because 2 people are autistic doesn't mean they're necessarily going to get on, but at least there's some sort of shared experience. There's a kind of less judgmental atmosphere for people who often, as Chris has explained, judged unfairly and misunderstood. I also, my colleagues also run adult sort of self-awareness courses. So they're workshops, but they're very much sort of just telling people it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, you're okay, and explaining giving them hopefully some modicum of relief, like Chris has said, about, it's not weird. This is just the way that you perceive things, kind of thing. Who's to say that's right or wrong, kind of thing, and other people are right. We have an information, advice and guidance service who take about 12,000 calls a year from across the board, schools, doctors, whoever, as well as autistic people themselves, their parents, carers and stuff like that. There are a variety of kind of registered services and supported living services. I'm not in that department, but that's also.
Let me give out the details. If you want to find out more, Autism Hampshire has a good website with lots of information. There's BBC Action Line as well. Thank you so much for telling us about you and your lives and your journey as well. Thank you for your time, Dave Serpell Stevens, a senior autistic practice and training specialist at Autism Hampshire, and Chris Stiles, 53 years old, discovered that he was autistic 2 years ago. Thank you so much for coming in and being a guest on the programme here on BBC Radio Solent, Chris and Dave, as part of our Year of Wellbeing here on BBC Radio Solent.
BBC Radio Solent's Year of Wellbeing.